Welcome to my channel dedicated to machine learning insights and AI trends. Today I will introduce you an impressive tool called the NotebookML developed by Google. I will show you how such a tool can automatically generate a podcast in which two people discuss the content of one of my latest scientific publications. This article is focused on the use of laser-induced breakdown spectroscopy imaging, also called LIBS imaging, in the framework of medical diagnostics. Here is the scientific article on which this AI tool will work. If you want more details about this research, you will find the link to this publication in the description below. And as you can see, this publication even made the cover of Analytical Chemistry Journal. Now let's go to the website notebookml.google, and you can see that this AI tool is powered by Google's most capable model called Gemini 1.5 Pro. And so we'll try this notebook ML. So you click on try. For sure, you have to log in. So I will use my Google address here, but you can, of course, use other emails. Okay, so then we will create a new notebook and we'll upload the paper. So this tool is, let's say, analyzing the contents of this publication. For sure, this publication is in English, and you can see that an abstract has been generated here, which is for sure in French here because the Firefox I use is in French. But what I would like to show you now is to generate this podcast from this paper. So we click generate. It will for sure takes a few minutes, which is a bit long, but believe me, it's definitively worth the wait.
A few moments later.
Okay, as you can see, it's done, and now it is clear that the best way for you to evaluate the generated content would be by reading my article, but trust me, everything that is said is absolutely correct. So you may find it amazing or simply frightening. So don't hesitate to leave a comment and most importantly, subscribe to my channel and also to evaluate this tool. Why not trying to do the same with one of your paper? So now enjoy listening.
Ready for a deep dive? You sent over some really cool research about how we're diagnosing those really tricky occupational lung diseases.
Yeah,
The ones where it's so hard to pin down the cause.
right.
We're diving into a 2024 article from Analytical Chemistry, and it's about how LIBS imaging is finding hidden clues in lung biopsies.
Interesting.
It's like a superpower microscope that sees the absolute tiniest traces of elements,
Wow.
like stuff that conventional methods would totally miss.
And that is really, really crucial in this field because the occupational lung diseases, they often look very similar to other conditions, and it can be so hard to pinpoint, what the real cause is. Think about it. Lungs, they're constantly filtering the air we breathe. So if someone's been exposed to something harmful at work for years and years and years, trying to figure out which element is the culprit is like finding a needle in a haystack.
Okay, so we have LIBS, this incredibly powerful tool, and we're using it to analyze these lung biopsies for clues. What I think is so fascinating is how LIBS actually works. It's like speed dating, but for elements.
Uh-huh. Okay, I like that.
So we zap a tiny bit of the biopsy with a laser, and every single element in that sample, It emits a unique signal, like a fingerprint.
Oh, wow.
And by analyzing those signals, we can tell exactly what elements are there.
And the sensitivity of this technique is amazing. Even the tiniest amount of an element will give off a signal. And that's what makes it so good for these cases. It can pick up exposures that other methods just wouldn't.
Wow. So in this study, they actually put LABIS to the test with 2 patients. And their cases really highlight how powerful this technique can be.
Okay.
One patient worked in precious metal recycling for over 30 years.
Oh, wow.
Can you imagine the exposure?
Yeah, like a whole cocktail of different metals.
Exactly. And the other patient worked as a metal worker, machining various metals for 40 years.
So both of these patients had what are called granulomas in their lung biopsies.
Yeah.
Granulomas, they're clusters of inflammation. Basically, it's the body's way of trying to contain something that it doesn't like, something that it thinks is harmful.
Interesting.
Yeah, and granulomas, they're common in sarcoidosis,
Right.
which, as you know, can cause inflammation in a lot of different organs, but it usually affects the lungs. But in these cases, the doctors, they suspected that their work history might be a factor.
Okay, so they needed a way to analyze these granulomas to see if there were any elements present that could be linked back to their work.
Right.
And that's where LIBS comes in.
Exactly. And they actually used 2 different approaches to analyze the data.
Oh, how interesting.
Yeah, so first they did a traditional LIBS analysis,
Okay.
which basically means they looked at what elements were most prominent in the biopsy samples. And those initial analyses found things like aluminum and silicon.
Which would make sense considering what they were exposed to at work.
Right, and that's the thing. Those elements are pretty common. They could be found in a lot of different materials.
It wasn't necessarily a smoking gun.
Exactly.
And this is where it gets really cool.
Okay.
They took all this LIBS data and they ran it through a special program called an Interesting Features Finder, IFF.
Interesting features finder.
Catchy, right?
I like it.
So IFF helps identify those rare elements, the ones that might only be present in tiny, tiny amounts,
Right.
but could still be super important.
It's like if you had a map of all the elements in the sample and you wanted to find the outliers, the ones that are farthest away from the average.
Okay.
That's what IFF does. It's like drawing a circle around all those far out points, the
Ah.
unusual ones.
Got it. So they ran the data through the IFF, and what they found was amazing. Remember that patient who worked in precious metal recycling?
Yeah.
IFF flagged tin, rhodium, and nickel.
Wow.
And those are all elements commonly found in the precious metals he worked with. But the thing is, these elements, they weren't showing up as major players in those initial analyses. It was the IFF that zeroed in on them.
Wow, that's huge. I mean, that kind of information is key for making a diagnosis. Because now you could be able to say, with certainty, that this patient's lung disease, it's directly related to being exposed to these specific metals at work.
Exactly.
That kind of information, it can impact treatment decisions, even workers' compensation cases.
Absolutely. It's like finding that missing puzzle piece.
Yeah.
So what about the other patient, the metal worker? What did they find for him?
Well, for him, the IFF found nickel and tin. Again, elements that could be linked back to his work.
It's incredible. This technology isn't just about identifying what's there, but it's about understanding the so what, you know.
Totally. This kind of analysis could completely change how we think about occupational lung disease, how we diagnose it, how we treat it.
It's like we're looking at these diseases with a new lens, a lens that lets us see things that we just couldn't see before. Makes you wonder, what other hidden connections could we find if we use this kind of technology to study other diseases?
Oh, absolutely. The possibilities are really exciting.
Well, that's about all the time we have for today's deep dive. But before we go, I want to emphasize the potential of this technology. We've only just scratched the surface of what it can do. Think about it. What mysteries could you uncover in your own field? If you could use this kind of analysis to reveal hidden connections, that's something to chew on, right?
Definitely.
Until next time, keep asking those questions, and we'll see you on the next deep dive.
As you can see, this is not so bad. Huh? So please have a look and why not try it and again, give me your feedback about it. Bye.